line up. And if you're in the left lane, stay in your left lane. If you're in the right lane, stay in the right lane. Just stay in your lane. And I don't know that a lot of people have.
What if you're in London, England, though? That's where I get confused. London, England, I don't know what lane to be in.
Oh, nice. Well, good thing we're not in London.
Yeah.
Or in the Autobahn.
Straddle the stripes. That's the thing. Straddle the stripes. You're only half wrong no matter what.
Half wrong, a quarter wrong, a fifth wrong.
Now you sound like you're from Washington, D.C.
Rudy's bringing in the fifth already. I'll drink the fifth.
Turns out all about the who knew?
For people who watch this show, we were just talking for those that are just tuning in now. We were talking about being in the wheelhouse and doing what you do best. I focus on the sport that is present. So I'm transitioning now into college basketball, which is off to a fantastic start. And for whatever reason, college basketball, I think, is probably the hardest. But having these algorithms, it cuts through and clarifies these matchups. And, it's all about the numbers. And I got a bunch of numbers for these two games coming up. But, I wanted to talk to you guys about this. Should that flag been thrown in the Eagles-Rams game where Jalen Carter, who is a beast, one of the best players I've ever seen play live, by the way. I mean, he reminds me of Fletcher Cox, and he also reminds me of that Reggie White guy back in the day. I mean, he just disrupts. And, he's not an influencer. He just disrupts. And the way he did that last play where he manages to get himself isolated on a center. There's not a center in the history of the world that can go one-on-one against Jalen Carter. Yeah. So what do you guys think? I mean, I get tired of, like in the NBA, the last 2 minutes, the refs swallow the whistle. And there's all kinds of stuff happening that should have been called, that was called earlier in the game. But now we have these referees that, are afraid to make a call. I don't know what it is. But I think the Rams fans have a legitimate gripe that they should have had first down inside the 10. And I know I wanted the Eagles to win by 6 or more. They did. So me talking about this would have caused my clients and myself a significant loss.
Sure.
But I just was like, really did feel bad about it. Even though I pushed on the bet, I still felt bad. What do you think, Bo? Do you think that should have been called?
So here's the thing with officiating for me. Like, if you're going to call it tight or you're going to call it loose, I don't care. Just call it the same all game, right? Set the precedent. We're calling this today. Fine. You can adjust to that. It's when we're calling this right now, or we're calling this for this team or whatever. That's where officiating makes me mad. If you want to call ticky-tack calls all day, sure, that's fine. If it goes both ways and the precedent is set all day, awesome. Or you want to let people hand check and beat each other up down the field and swallow the whistle, awesome. Let's do that all day. That way the players know what the boundary is when they step on the field. It's when we're going to let this play out. And it's like, well, that one shouldn't, right? Like, dude got lit up. Or you end up with weird personal foul calls that aren't calls, right? That the flag comes out because they're protecting a player. Obviously alluding to, people's speculation of Mahomes here. But that's the biggest thing, is the inconsistency of officiating is what irritates me. If it's consistent, I don't care.
Rudy, would you have thrown the flag?
I would have thrown the flag only because it looked relatively suspicious. Now, referees, and I'm going to say this across the board, there are makeup calls in every single sport. It doesn't matter what sport you're in. It doesn't matter what you do, this isn't a one-on-one type of situation. This isn't golf where you can't commit any fouls. There's tennis where you could commit a foul if you throw a racket at somebody. But the overview from officiating is the ball in or is the ball out? There is no physical or human effects you're going to see after this bad call. Well, they just shrug it off and go on. This is a contact sport in football. So one is coinciding of another. You've heard the term massive humanity, right? Well, the massive humanity may not have anything to do with the actual call on the field, but because the perception of these guys that are 300 plus pounders landing on this skinny wide receiver at maybe $125 soaking wet should, maybe think about throwing the flag if you're a referee, or if you're going to do it just
what games are you watching?
I'm just saying,
Pinkston's back.
maybe so. All I know is when I was 16 years old, I was maybe 95 soaking wet, but that's another story. But relatively speaking, when it comes to officiating, there's such thing as makeup calls. Makeup calls are those you didn't get right in the first part of the game, but then now you're scrutinizing with more thoroughness from the half point all the way to the end point with a lot more strict visibility. Do I see this? Are we going to go to the monitors? Crowd's going to boo, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? You got to get the call right, no matter what it takes. And unfortunately, that was not thrown, and it should have. It should very well have.
Well, I mean, that's like makeup calls. Like, let's say a judge in the courtroom, guy comes in, he robbed a bank, and on a technicality, he's innocent and let go. And then the next guy did the same exact crime. So the judge thinks that, well, I got to keep my record even on these two people, and this guy's going to be guilty no matter what. That's literally how I look at these referees on these makeup calls. Drive me crazy.
Yeah, you talk about the human element. The human element here. If I'm a referee and I'm in Philadelphia and I'm making a call in the last 30 seconds, minute of a game, and I got to walk out of that field, maybe in the back of my mind, I'm not making that call.
That is me, Jim. I'll admit it. I would have not thrown that flag if my life would have depended on it.
Right?
You know,
well, not only that, but on the back of the head and your shirt may have nothing but snow on it as well. So if they can boo Santa Claus,
snowballs at Santa Claus. So I have no doubt that they would throw everything at a referee that just caused them to lose.
Bottled water.
They were winning 28-13.
They're signed football. They got it.
They throw batteries at one point too. So
yeah, batteries. Yeah, I mean, that can like damage a skull. The last thing I checked.
Yeah, last time I checked that as well. I think there's a problem with that. I don't know. It could be for me. But to your point, Jim, I think when you look at disagreeable calls or questionable calls, there's a lot of that going on, whether it's baseball, whether it's football, at all levels, in every aspect. If you take the human element out of it, right, and you see the NFL using this automatic, did the ball cross the actual first line marker to get to move the chains forward, that could eventually be what the AI is for. These calls that are too close are going to go to that component and say, was it really a foul? Or we're measuring, we're going into the analytical aspect of what that looks like. And to your point, John, when you're talking about, guys coming in and getting arrested, well, what does that record look like? Do you want a referee that throws flags on every single itty bitty ticky tack thing that happens on the field, or are you going to be less likely to throw one for someone who's not a repeat offender?
See, that's actually the problem with the AI part of this is there's holding on every single play. So if you're relying on eye in the sky, I mean, you may never get through the first drive.
or the offensive lineman, everybody wear boxing gloves on the field. Oh, guess what? There's no more holding.
That's true.
I think where it comes in handy would be on the pass interference calls, and then the helmet to helmet, and vicious hits on the quarterback, for example, which would protect Mahomes even more. And the reason I say that is I have a Python app that actually measures yards of separation between a receiver and a defender, and that is part of the models. And I always remember that guy Aguilera of the Eagles, who had rock hands, but he had by far
Nelson Aguilar
separation.
Yeah. Yep, Aguilar.
Did I say it wrong? Aguilar.
Yeah, Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah. But had by far the best, yards of separation from the defenders that covered him, but he couldn't catch a ball. So maybe that's why he was given all that room so he'd throw to him. But anyway, that was years ago.
Hey, real quick, back to a call in a close game. If you were a bettor last week, think about this. First, you had the Texas Chiefs. If you ended up with that 9.5 line, I got an 8.5, and I slept like a baby. But an intentional safety, and if you had that 9.5, it swung either way on that one. If you had that Rams game, you had 2 missed kicks by Jake Elliott. If you got 6 as your line, You may have gotten a push out of it, but that went either way. And then you've got Ravens Bills, and that's, that line was 1.5. But if Mark Andrews holds on to that, think of all these games with the point spread. It really came down to fortune. It wasn't somebody I called this great pick. Everything I had went right. No, it was 3 out of 4 games. You needed fate to be on your side.
That's right. Brought to you by DraftKings.
Yeah.
Let's get a sponsor on this show, DraftKings. Let's go.
Player prop was for Mark Andrews to not catch that would-be touchdown, the go-ahead winner. Yeah.
It was too easy.
It was way too easy. And you know what? He's getting shade for that. He's getting shade for that. But you know what? In all honesty, he should. He should absolutely get shade for that. There's no question. He dropped 2 balls earlier in the game, and then he dropped the game-winning the game-winning. We're not talking about a 2-point attempt.
Yeah, he had a fumble also. So it was a team
effort. Bo will defend me on this.
It was a team effort to lose, though. It was full on a team effort to lose.
Well,
people were watching the game.
Not in that instance, though. In that instance, the ball was in his mittens. Mittens.
So the thing is they turn the ball over, right? He drops one, Lamar drops one. I think the biggest indictment of this is they had a running game that was working awesome, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely killing them. You know how many carries Derrick Henry ended up with? 16 for the game. You know how many games they've won when he's carried 16 or less?
None.
2 by the Bengals, 1 in overtime. And the other one against the Bengals because the Bengals just like to lose to the Ravens for whatever reason. But outside of that, 16 or less carries, they lose every time. I feel like I may not be the only person watching this film. Run the damn ball.
Well, it reminds me of that Seahawks loss against New England.
Yeah, so the thing that's funny is that situationally made sense. Because it's second down, they have 1 timeout. They had to do a pass play to get all 4 downs. So was the execution the worst possible outcome? No question. But on second or third down, they were going to have to run a pass play because they had 1 timeout. And to get all 4 downs, one of them had to be. Now, you run a slant, you think worst case scenario, it's an incomplete pass.
Right.
It's one of the simplest throws in the league. And if you get the rub route that's supposed to be there, now, Malcolm Butler made an incredible play. I'm not taking away from that at all. But if your receivers did what they're supposed to do, Malcolm Butler can't make that play. So, as much as people like to try and pile on that, it actually made sense situationally. Now, again, you get an interception on the 1, you got the rushing leader of the year, and, whatever. I get it retrospectively. But situationally, one of them had to be a pass play.
2 things about that. First of all, Lynch was a fumbler at the goal line. I remember that San Francisco game a couple weeks earlier. Put the ball down. That's a play where that great linebacker shredded his knee. I forget his name, but anyway, the other thing was, this is crazy. Belichick actually had his team situationally practice that exact play, and Butler
say that, Jim.
Butler was unable to stop it in his own practice. But how would they even know this is a play that you're going to practice for in the Super Bowl at the 1 yard line? Because like everybody else is thinking they're probably running Lynch, but they practiced that play and it worked. That is the most insane thing. But one more thing I want to make about Henry. As soon as Buffalo came out, and they came out with extra bodies to stop the run, immediately Todd Monken should have brought in his heavy set because their heavy set would have mauled Buffalo's light guys. They bring them on, put 9 guys in the box, right? And they fundamentally screwed that up because they had exactly what they wanted. Come on, Buffalo, bring it up, bring everybody up. We will smash you. They didn't.
That offset line had worked against Pittsburgh so well because they couldn't stop the run. When you overpressurize the side of least resistance, Ricard knew what he had to do. The gameplay was called. It was executed, and he took off for 20 yards. 15 yards, 25 yards. I mean, he was able to really peg and run through defenders. And everybody is right. The more time he gets, the more hits he gets, the better he gets. So the bigger question is why didn't they call that jumbo on the left side with Ricard and still leave Andrews in on the rub route on the right-hand side? So if it didn't work out for Mark, well, at least we have Derrick Henry for the draw or play action, right? Build that up in a short pass, a curl route, anything would have been better. However, the ball was still in Mark Andrews' hands because, as you know, quarterbacks want to give the benefit of the doubt to who? The wide receivers, the guys who dropped the ball. Why? Because they want to help them build their confidence so they don't lose their confidence. And that right there would be the decider, or the game winner, or the game loser. And that was a game loser.
So the only thing about that is there's been a lot of hate about that play call. And I don't know why, because the play worked. Andrews was open. Like, he just didn't make the catch. People are like, you should have ran. It's like the play worked perfectly. Mm-hmm. Andrews was open. He had 3 yards on the guy. All he had to do was catch it and fall in. So, I mean, it's funny that the OC is getting heat for a play that worked perfectly by design.
Hey, had nothing Chris to do Sims. With the OC because he's not the one throwing the ball.
It happened in Philadelphia earlier this year with the
Chris Sims, former quarterback and announcer, he blamed a lot of it on Lamar, because on that play, if you watch the film, Lamar double clutched. And then he said when he double clutched, he threw it like a dart. He didn't just rip it. He threw it like a dart. The ball was cold and heavy, slick. And he basically threw him a changeup. And so and look, Andrews does not have good hands. He never has good hands. But Chris Sims does bring in an element. And when I rewatch it, like, oh my gosh, Lamar he pulled the trigger, but he held. And he had that ball right away. Let it rip. Now, Andrews dropped it, like you said. Can't argue with that. But Lamar could have made a normal throw, not a dart toss.
Yeah, it didn't have to be a rocket, for sure. Like, he could have put a little touch on that ball, and it'd been easier to catch. At the same time, it hits you in both hands.
Yeah,
100%. You gotta catch that ball.
Yeah, 100%.
He had the room. Lamar had the room. He had all the coverage possible. He had a relatively clean pocket, especially down in the red zone. His offensive line just absolutely did wonders. They have probably one of the best offensive lines in football. But the fact alone he was given that much time and then threw a rocket ship to Mark Andrews, that's a problem. So Chris has a good point there. However, there could have been someone else on the opposite side. Maybe Isaiah Likely. Ooh, maybe Justice Hill on the left-hand side, maybe on the turnaround, a little dub over the top, So again, play action wasn't really sold.
But Andrews was
wide open.
And he was open. So even if you had somebody on the backside, he was looking at his wide open receiver. So, I mean, he's not going to check off of an open guy to look at a guy on the opposite side. You don't make that progression because your first read is open.
Yeah, well, but again, considering the elements, you follow the read that will work. Did it look like it was going to work to him? Absolutely. Otherwise, he would have never thrown the ball.
It looked like it was going to work.
It looked like it was a gift from God. And I think that's why he threw it like this. He didn't want the ball as hard as a rock. Mm-hmm. The temperatures are 10 degrees. Andrews has already dropped 2 in the game. So if he doesn't clutch, then I think another factor was Andrews was probably fumbling with his feet, trying to stay in bounds and make sure that he at least hit the pylon, right? Mm-hmm. So that it would count. Mm-hmm. So if Lamar doesn't, pump and then throw the dart, Andrews probably catches it, easily. But I think it was the changeup. Like Andrews was expecting, a missile, like a hard throw, like Lamar always does. And then when it was soft like that, and he's falling backwards trying to stay in bounds, I think, I guess he's giving the guy too much credit.
Mark Andrews' game in that reminded me a lot of Jeremy Stevens in the Seahawks' first Super Bowl appearance. He was great all year, and then couldn't catch anything in that game. He dropped like 5 first downs. He couldn't catch anything in pregame. Like, it was wild. And that's kind of how Andrews was that day, right? Like, he had
a stand if he fell off a camel.
He dropped a lot.
He did. And you know what? I guarantee you he is hurting himself and knocking himself against the wall of what could have been with the Ravens. And I thought the Ravens were going to win. I picked the Ravens to win that game because they'd come in with, Jim agrees with me as well, that he called it in addition to them going on the road. They were the better team. They showed that. They came in. They were more fluid. They had completed more. Lamar Jackson knocking on the door of history for himself and for his team. There's so much to unpack. They just folded like a deck of cards, and that was game.
Yeah, it was. Let's talk about the Eagles and the Commanders, because what a gift. Initially a gift that the Eagles got before they had to play on Sunday. Jaden Daniels is the real deal. This is the third road game for them, however. So that's going to be a monumental task. Yet the point spread's only 6 and the total's 47.5. I didn't think Barkley was going to get over 100 yards, believe it or not. His run prop was 115. And of the players in the playoffs that rushed for more than 200 yards, the following week, not one of them went over 100. So what does Barkley do? He almost doubles that amount again. And, I'll say it again, without him getting these big chunk touchdown runs, would we be talking about the Eagles right now? Probably not. He's won so many games for them in terms of time of possession, moving the chains. I mean, he is definitely the MVP. And I think actually the best player on the team is probably Jalen Carter on, just pound for pound. And obviously he's a lot heavier than even Barkley is. But I think this game really sets up well for the Eagles. You have a playoff team that is seasoned in the Eagles. You have a Washington team that is making their first appearance in, I guess, since the Reagan administration. And that's not an exaggeration. I think that is the last time they were in the championship game. But I do have some little things here to show. Let's see. Situational trends in the conference finals. Home teams playing in the conference championship and have made the playoffs 4 consecutive years are 11-3 straight up, 9-5 against the spread, 6-7 over under. That points to the Eagles and the Chiefs winning these games. Teams in the conference championship playing their 5th consecutive playoff season, which we are talking about the Chiefs, 10-1 straight up, 8-3 against the spread, 73%. Favorites with previous season playoff experience and facing a team new to the playoffs, 11-3 straight up. But keep in mind, there's 3 losses there, and that's what we're going to talk about. Is this Jaden Daniels like the second coming of Tom Brady? Remember, they were dogs in that first 2000 playoff run. And then Belichick benched Bledsoe, yes, it's in favor of this unknown pudgy guy from Michigan. And look what happened. And the rest is history. Teams coming off a double-digit ATS win, which the Commanders are, 18-21 straight up, 19-20. But look at the over-under, 24-14, 63%. Home teams that pushed or failed to cover the spread in the divisional round, that being the Eagles, and facing a foe that covered by double digits, that would make the Eagles 7-2 straight up, 6-3, and 5-3 under. Favorites in the same role, which the Eagles are, 7-0 straight up, 6-1 ATS, 5-1 under. Hard for me not to kind of like the Eagles in this matchup. But let's start with Bo here and see what he thinks in this matchup. And, if you have any best bets, because these games, it's 2 games. A lot of times it's better not to bet the game pre-flop and then see how the flow goes. And then there's a lot of trends I'm going to show here that are predictive measures of previous outcomes in the conference championship when a team scores first or has more first downs or has more penalties, what have you. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But take it away, Bo, and see if you think the Eagles are the team that's going to win this game.
Yeah, so I like the Eagles here. Obviously, there's some experience on that team as well. Now, the Commanders are playing with house money, so you can't count them out. They're a very solid team, and they've shown that the moment isn't too big for them. That being said, they're going up against the number 1 defense in the league, right? The Eagles are allowing the fewest yards per game. They're the 2nd fewest passing yards, the 10th fewest rushing yards, the 2nd fewest points per game. So, I mean, that's a daunting task for a rookie, rookie quarterback, a lot of new pieces. Obviously, Dan Quinn has been in these moments before, so it's not that I'm worried about a rookie coach because he's not that. But I do think the Eagles can get this done, and some of it just has to do with they've been in this moment before. And although they do really struggle scoring in the first quarter, right? First drive, we don't even want to talk about, but the first quarter as a whole, they struggle. If Washington is going to pull this off, they need to put some points up early.
Yeah, I agree. Scoring first is critical. You'll see what I mean when we get to that point. Let's move over to Rudy and see what he's got going here. Whether he's going to support his Ron Jaworski buddies Eagles or whether he's going to go for the upset. Oh, you're muted.
Of course I'm muted. There's a lot of things I didn't want to say. That's why I have myself muted. But the things that I'm going to say are just like this. Jane Daniels, my hometown favorite from the San Bernardino County. If anybody knows where San Bernardino County is, this is not for the faint-hearted. They're 150-1 to win this game, and to win it all, essentially beyond the NFC, but it get it into the Super Bowl. A lot of things to be said for this guy, a lot of things to be said for this team and where they've been. And, coach of the year could very well be their head coach. I mean, look, he's a second rookie quarterback to be 150-1 in the preseason, which it didn't look like a whole lot in preseason. Matter of fact, the odds were against him, literally and figuratively speaking, because of who they say they were going to be with a rookie quarterback, with a new head coach. Not that he's not been in the game forever, but he has. And, he brings a different element to it. The Eagles, on the other hand, have tons of playoff experience. Nakobe Dean, Jalen Carter, Jalen Hurts. This is like a Super Bowl roster. It's like a repeat of what we've seen when they were in the Super Bowl playing against the Kansas City Chiefs, which I'm sure we're going to go off and talk as well about. But the bottom line is that there's too much experience on this Eagles team. There's too much leadership on this team. And yes, I question Nick Sirianni's play calling early in the season, and I'm probably still going to think of some of his wild, wacky, and ridiculous play calls. But, what teams don't go out on top that make those wacky calls? Because if they're wacky and they don't work, well, then they're just flat out stupid. But if they're wacky and they do work, you're the best genius since, I don't know, Coach Cowher, for that matter. So there's so much to like about this Eagles team in regards to this matchup against the Commanders. But this is the third time both of these teams are going to be meeting, and at least once in the postseason play, to the extent of going back to back and now back to back. So the Commanders always know how to give Eagles and their fans some defibrillators that will help them maybe guide into a Super Bowl matchup again against the Kansas City Chiefs, or could be the Buffalo Bills. But I know this much. I think the Eagles take it.
Yeah, I think so too. It just seems so obvious to me. Jim, do you agree with us?
I do. There are a couple other points I want to add about this game. The biggest storyline that won't get talked about much is the fact that the Commanders lost their guard, Samuel Cosby, to a torn ACL last week. He was by far their best interior defender, and the rest of the interior, Tyler Biadasz, was with the Cowboys. He's not very good. Their other guard, not good at all. Well, Jalen Carter lives in the middle of a defensive line, and it's going to be an easy opportunity for him to blow up the middle of the line. And that's going to cause the crushing of the pocket way easier than usual. So that's something that I think is a big edge to the Eagles. The other thing is the Eagles, among the two matchups, look, that second matchup, Jalen Hurts left with a concussion. And for whatever reason, the rest of that game, the defense stopped covering. They left people wide open for 4 touchdowns. That's very unlike them. The first game, 191 yards for Jaden Daniels, nowhere to go with the ball other than to dump it to his screens to his running backs and dump off passes to his tight ends, because the Eagles gave them that. I expect Fangio to make sure we're back to that game script, because I don't know that the Commanders have an answer. And then one other thing. Yes, Saquon Barkley has been Superman, but remember, in that game where Hurts went out, after they settled in with Kenny Pickett, the defense of the Commanders sold out to stop Barkley. Now, Barkley goes 29 for $150 in that game. He had 108 yards early in that game. After Washington sold out, Barkley didn't do a whole lot the rest of the way in that game. Why? That was the reason, the defense. But Jalen Hurts may have to see that in this game. The team may say, look, we can't let Barkley beat us. And they'll take a chance with Hurts on maybe a compromised knee. A.J. Brown has missed practice in each of the last couple of weeks before this week, and he's had 3 catches for 24 yards in the playoffs. If Brown is really not close to 100%, and if Hurts isn't close to 100%, that's Washington's one scenario that if they decide to stop the run and Hurts can't make it work, that could be a problem.
Let's be real, though. If the defense, even if you have a bottom-ranked defense, you're selling out on Barkley if Pickett is the one pulling the trigger. Like, you're going to be like, yeah, let's try and make this guy beat us.
I think there's a good chance they try it though, because if Hurts is compromised at all, and if Brown, I think Brown is hurt. I think Brown is playing hurt, because how does AJ Brown get 3 catches for 24 yards over 2 games in the playoffs? How? Because he is like Superman, right? So that I'm worried about it. I still think the Eagles win like you guys do, but I'm concerned.
I'd be concerned about protection. What I would be concerned with if I were the Eagles is to underestimate the Commanders. I would underestimate their play calling, their situational calling, especially in the red zone. And I say that because let's face it, Jay Daniels has been absolutely on point. He throws daggers, and unless you're going to play cover 2 or you're going to do man zone, depending on where you're at on the field, situationally, he could make you pay. He will slice and dice you up. He's done it all season long, and he's just getting better and better with every game that he plays. Matter of fact, the 2008 Giants are the only team to win as dogs in 3 straight playoff games entering a Super Bowl matchup. So that tells you that because of how good they were defensively, they're the ones to get in. Now, defense doesn't always necessarily win championships, but it's not going to hurt.
Nope.
But it could very well hurt yourself if you put yourself in the wrong field position.
Are we laying the 6 points, though? I think the Eagles win, but are we laying 6?
I have a little algorithm here. I think that's the other one. Let me get to the right one. Sorry for scrolling through here. I think this is yep, here we are. The following NFL algorithm: 41-16, 38-19, ATS 67% since 1989. That's a long time ago. Bet on home teams. The road team is playing their 3rd consecutive road game, and the road team won their last game, priced as the dog, meaning an upset win. If the game is a divisional matchup of teams, the home team has gone 13-4 straight up, 11-6, 65%. That's in the regular season and the playoffs. And then just in the playoffs, these home teams have gone 5-1 straight up, 4-2, with the only loss taking place in the 2010 conference championship game, in which the Packers defeated those Bears 21-14, priced as 7-point dogs. Oddly enough, this line is 6, and it's moving to 6.5. And what if it is 7 points at game time? I can tell you this: 7-point and more favorites, they're the ones to avoid in the conference championship round. Those are the teams that win the game, but then they, like last week with the Eagles, they had that game 28-13. I had a buddy that had 7, and then he went 7.5 and doubled the bet. And there you go, 28-13. He texted me looking good, and I thought, oh my God, that's the kiss of death to count a bet before it's over.
Yep.
And man alive, I mean, you just cannot make this stuff up. Even the safety that Andy Reid took with an 11-point lead, I did a head scratch on that, but I thanked him because I got the push at +9. I'd never go to the window and say, well, wait, I really didn't win that bet. You just keep the money. But anyway, let's move on to the Kansas City game here, because they are going for their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl championship, which no one, including Tom Brady or Joe Montana or any of those greats, have ever done. I don't think Brady even had a chance to win 3 in a row, come to think of it. That's off the top of my head. But let's start with Jim this time on this matchup and see where he's going, because maybe this is Buffalo's year, but my heart wants to see the Eagles and the Chiefs.
You know, it's so hard to do analysis on this game because the boogeyman, Patrick Mahomes, is sitting there, and right, no matter what it is, he finds a way to get it done almost every time. And the Bills have won 4 straight regular season matchups against this team, and yet the Chiefs have won all 3 of the playoff matchups. And so that's where we're stuck. In this game, what'll be interesting is the Bills' strong safety, Taylor Rapp, has missed practice with a hip and a back injury. That's going to be an important injury for them. Also, I wonder if Andy Reid was playing it coy last week. Look, every team is dangerous, but I wonder if he knew he'd win that game, and he didn't really weaponize Hollywood Brown. I know they avoided those corners a little bit, but I wonder if he kind of held back on using Hollywood Brown because the Bills haven't seen him yet on the field, and I don't think they've really even scratched the surface with him, but they had a plan for him in the beginning of the season, and that plan was for him to help, expose zone defenses. So I'm going to be interested to see that. On the other side, it's just, look, Josh Allen is great, But who does he have at receiver? Because I think Trent McDuffie probably moves on Khalil Shakir, locks him down. In the last game, the Bills picked on Najee Johnson. Well, Jalen Watson's back, and it's a big upgrade at corner. So what other advantages do the Bills have?
That's great stuff, Jim. That's why I love having you on the show. And I'll tell you, if you don't follow his DFS stuff for your DraftKings lineups, you're making a huge mistake. The man I'll tell you the truth, he has made me money because I have switched tight ends at the last minute. I've done this, little tweaks, and that's the difference between I would have made money if I would have had 5 more points. Jim gets me like 10 more. So it's all good stuff. Bo, do you think Buffalo has a chance to win this game and get to the Super Bowl and maybe even win it?
Yeah, I think so. Yes. So I do think that they can take down KC. The thing is they did beat them in the regular season. And I actually kind of would have preferred them lose to KC in the regular season rather than win. It's just one of those. I think they would have been. I think they would come with a little bit more fight. Not to say that they don't want this game. Of course they do. But, you have. I don't know. You do have the boogeyman of Mahomes, right? So, I mean, you're definitely not wrong. And, if I were to do a bet on this, I would stay away from this game. If you look at the stat sheet, they are very equal, right, across the board. I think my prop bet for this would be the over of 2 personal fouls. I would do that. Of roughing the passer, there's going to be more than 2. You have to be specific with the sports book because not all of them will let you do it. But there are a couple out there that'll let you do prop bets on penalties. And that would be the one I would look for. Roughing the passer, I would take the over of 2.
Yeah, I think I'd pay minus 300 on that bet, actually. It seems like a lock.
Yeah, that's a whole heck of a lot right there.
Rudy, are you on board with one of these teams? Do you think the over-under is a better play?
Oh, man, this is so tough. It's almost like the mirror images of postseason and regular season past, right? Because when the Chiefs were noted, and I'm going to preface that by saying this. Players that we don't talk about the fact that we're trying to repeat, we're taking one game at a time, is the biggest pile of dog mess ever on this planet. And I say that because you hear Travis Kelce talking about it. You hear Patrick Mahomes saying, well, we're not focused on those games. We're focused on the game. Okay, fine. So a little bit of focus is paid on this game, but the majority of the focus is getting back for a three-peat. So don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining, because when it's all said and done, the Kansas City Chiefs were headed into this matchup as being the favorites to go back to the Super Bowl and to win the Super Bowl. It doesn't, regardless of who the foe is. Now, I'll preface that by saying this as well. The Chiefs will end up winning all of it. When I say all of this game, Super Bowl is another story. It's a different animal. Throw your regular season and playoff and AFC championship games out of the window and put them in the shredder, because it doesn't even matter. It's 0-0. Let's start and let's rock and roll. The problem that I have with this is that the Cowboys were +7 on the road in 94, lost. The 1990 49ers lost as an 8-point favorite at home versus the Giants. And my team, unfortunately, in 76 were 4 on the road and lost to the Raiders. So I think Patrick Mahomes has something to be said for that. Is a different era, different time QB. Is he a generational talent? Now that's debatable. He could very well be, but I will say this. Kansas City will give the Bills every single look humanly possible. And I mean from a receiving standpoint, between Xavier Worthy, it's not going to even be close. So unfortunately for the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, as big as they claim they weren't against Baltimore, they're going to show up. Unfortunately, there's too much Mahomes, too much out-of-pocket throws, too much accuracy on the run. I mean, heck, he ended the regular season at 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, but his QBR was not even 68%. So he's going to make you pay. But what he's doing is, instead of trying to run to do the most like we've seen him do throughout the regular season and in past Super Bowls, he's going to hand it off with little dodge passes, with little tight end slants and wide receiver slants, and a dink and dunk, if you will, especially when you get into the red zone, or make those heroic throws that he's known to have made throughout his short career, especially that last one where he was going down and threw it right into Travis Kelce's glove. That was amazing. And if that was baseball, that would have been a 3 strikes you're out, bottom 9, call it a day. So I think the Chiefs get it done here.
Interesting stuff for sure. I'm going to move to these predicted trends, and then we'll do our best bets for the show. Bo has his big show coming up at 11 a.m. Be sure to watch that, as does Jim Coventry, going live on the Rotowire TV channel. So you can catch both of them. Watch one archived shows so you can watch them anytime you want. Let's see if I can find the predictive slide here. Here we go. If you predict a winner, you've gone 38-8 against the spread, 83%, and 26-19 to the over. This is a round that does lean to the over. We had, the wild card round is 64% since 2010, blindly betting the under. I don't encourage anybody to bet blindly, but that is the fact. 15 of the 46 dogs have won the game outright, 32%. 11 dogs of 6.5 or fewer points have pulled off the upset. I'm targeting Washington on that angle. Road dogs that score 20 or more points have gone 10-13, 16-7 against the spread, 70%. I got to think Washington and Buffalo both score 20 or more points based on that. Road dogs that score 20 or more points, that's a repeat there. Teams that have had the same or fewer turnovers. Turnovers in the playoffs are huge. They've gone 39-15, 41-13 for 76%. Teams that led after the first quarter by any amount went on to a 33-18 straight up, 34-17 against the spread record for 67% winners. Teams that had a lead of 7 points exact at the end of the first went on to a 12-2 straight up ATS record, 86%. Let's see what else I have here. Home teams leading or tied at the half. So this is a live in-game bet for the second half. 21-5 these teams are straight up, 18-8 against the spread. So if the home team is leading or tied, there is no opportunity to bet the opponent, the road team, in a live game situation. I would advise heavily not to do that. Home teams leading at the half, 20-5 straight up, 18-7. Road dogs that trailed at the half, 4-17, 6-15. So there again, don't be tempted to bet the road dog here if they're trailing and expect a comeback. It doesn't really happen very often. Road dogs that led or were tied at the half, 7-8, but listen to that, 12-3 ATS. So if we have a road dog being Buffalo or Washington that is tied or winning at the half, it represents an excellent opportunity, no matter what the line is, to bet them to go on and cover the spread, and also that halftime spread pretty handily. So that's the scoop there. I did have that's the Eagles algorithm, and here's the one on the betting against the Chiefs. And you guys will love this one. The NFL betting algorithm's gone 4-12 straight up and against the spread since 2004, so it's very rare. Works against the Chiefs. The game is the conference championship. The team we are facing is coming off a home win. That same team has won 5 or more games during the regular season in which they lost in the stats, meaning that total yards was fewer than the opponent's total yards, yet they won the game. So that is the smoke and mirrors that Kansas City has been doing all year. And it's very hard for me to bet against Andy Reid and Mahomes, of course. But maybe the market is a little bit overvalued here, and maybe this game should be more like a pick 'em. So if I had to pick any team, guys, it would be the Buffalo Bills in that matchup. So with the time remaining here, let's go around the horn. I think I'm going to go last this time, only because I'm the host and I'm unsure what I want to really give out for the best bet as we speak, because I can come into this show with some really good ideas like, hey, I'm on the Eagles -6. I actually already did bet them -6. But then I listen to you guys, and you guys are smart guys too. Nobody has all the answers, and that's what makes this show so much fun. So who wants to go first with their show best bet?
Sure.
Okay,
I'll knock mine
Joe's
out.
gonna get it.
Someone who spoke up is going to go.
Yeah, that's right. So mine is going to be Saquon Barkley with the over of 129.5. Because one thing to keep in mind in this game, even though you guys were talking about earlier of them potentially loading the box, trying to take him away, Washington is the 30th ranked rush defense. So I'm going to go with Barkley still has himself a day. If you bring everybody up, they're still not good. So I'm going to go with the over of 129.5.
Love it. You know, another bet I like, just for adding on to that, is Gainwell. He should be around like 11, 12, 13 yards. He had one carry last week for 10. If he gets the second one, he probably, does it. So I think that's, kind of a diamond in the rough there as well. Let's see what Jim Coventry has for us in terms of a best bet for the show.
Yeah, the best bet is a couple of Austin Eckler 4+ receptions. The reason I like that is in the first matchup between the Eagles and the Commanders, Vic Fangio played it properly against Washington. And what happened was they gave them screens, they gave them passes to tight ends, but they gave up nothing to the receivers. McLaurin had 10 yards in that game. Well, Eckler catches 8 there. I think there could be a similar game plan, dump offs to him. Travis Kelce touchdown anytime. It's like plus 115 or plus 125 on DraftKings. He has 5 touchdowns in the 3 playoff games against this Buffalo Bills team. So those are the 2 best bets I have.
Awesome. And it brings up to you, Rudy, only because I'm the host. I'm going last today.
That's perfectly okay, John. I think Josh Allen finds a way to go 0-4. He struggles, versus Pat. I think that it's going to go 0-4. So if there was a team bet or a player prop bet, he's going to go 0-4 against Patrick Mahomes. Aaron Rodgers against the 49ers, who's another horrible team in the playoffs. Since 1950 is also 0-4. So he's going to follow that trend, unfortunately. Is Allen an underdog? Absolutely. Is he going to win his first AFC championship game? No. I think, he's had plenty of opportunities throughout his tenure to get that proverbial Mahomes monkey off his back. Sadly, I just don't see it happening. Yeah, he has a better QBR, and he's tied for 6 interceptions. And, his story has been great so far. I take nothing away from that, or his play, his get out of pocket. I'm not the only guy on the field to make a play. I just don't believe it's going to be enough, especially with Chris Jones on the other side of that ball, collapsing that pocket against Buffalo Bills offensive line. There's no way. I'm taking Buffalo to lose this one. Josh Allen goes 0-4, and sadly enough, the Bills go bye-bye with the Patrick Mahomes-led Kansas City Chiefs to go and head into another Super Bowl.
Who will they be playing, Rudy?
I was going to say, do you think it's going to be the heartbreaker where they still somehow cover because it's only 1.5 points? They lose by 1 point just to Buffalo.
Yeah,
absolutely. I would do the money line.
It's a heart-wrenching, heartbreaking game for Josh Allen to lose by 8 points. And I think again, look, Firebaugh, California, where Josh Allen is from, is only an hour away from me. So if anybody wanted to throw tomatoes at me, they'd have to have a pretty darn good arm just to get that. And if it's Josh, I wish you the best.
There's worse bets to make, like Elliott missing 2 extra points. I'm not sure if that's a bet or not, but that was wild last week. And between that and the safety, and then watching Stafford come down the field, and when he gets locked in, and that was miserable conditions. He was not missing a thing. He was hitting a pimple on an elephant's rear end. He was so incredibly active. I really thought that the Eagles lost the game, and that was when they were at the 50-yard line, and it was pretty hard to watch.
You know why he didn't make that throw at the end?
Because it was helmet to helmet by Jalen Carter.
No, it's because he was playing with broken ribs, and he threw the ball to the right, and that's where his ribs were broken on the right-hand side.
That's a good point.
So are you going to have full turn radius with broken ribs? No, probably not.
You probably didn't want to get hit by Jalen Carter either.
That too. That'd be a player prop bet for you. How many times is he
Oh,
going to get
man.
sacked? How many sacks is he going to get?
My dad used to say, watching the Eagles back in the day, that boy, that guy got hit, and he's in the middle of next week.
Yep.
That would be me getting hit by Jalen Carter. I would be in the middle of next month.
See, that's what I always loved about the John Madden broadcasts, because he would be back there and be like, he was waiting for the play to develop, and boom, he got developed.
Gotta love the
That's
link up,
awesome.
man. That was fabulous.
So I'm going to go with the Eagles as my show best bet here. I think I'm going to go 50%. Well, I don't think I am going to go 50% pre-flop, which I already have in. And they're a slow starting team this season. They, not necessarily going to not score first in this game, but I'm hoping that Washington's offense gets off to a good start, because if the Eagles win the toss, you can bet that Washington's going to get the ball. And, if they score a touchdown, then I add that other 50%, probably at a price of about 2.5, 3 points, which is a lot better than 6 or 6.5. Mm-hmm. But I think it's going to be some excellent football. I mean, watching the NCAA college football game was almost a letdown, right, guys? I mean, it was so exciting, those two games that we watched come down to the last play, basically. And then, you had to get up again for the college football championship, and it was hard for me to get up 3 games in a row.
It's definitely difficult, no doubt about it.
Those guys had to get to their next show, but we have a lot of live viewers today, so thank you very much. If you want to get 3 days of my service, all sports, all access, the track records are very visible on many, many different sites. I just joined DubClub, which I think is really going to work out quite well. I'm really psyched about that partnership. So you want to get the next 3 days of all my plays for free, just send a note in the comments section or send me an email at johnryansports@gmail.com. Any final thoughts, Rudy, before I let you go?
You know what? These are probably going to be one of the best 1-2 games. And I don't say that because it's an NFC and AFC championship game. I'm saying it because of the level of competition that's involved. We're talking teams that have battle tested throughout the whole entire regular season in the wild card, from wild card contention to now divisional. And that was brutal too. But then now we have the AFC and NFC championship games. They're going to be great. They're going to be fun. So anybody who's going to be betting out there, just make sure you bet wisely.
And that's a great way for me to end this show with my saying that I always use, and I really do mean it. It's not a joke. Betting is supposed to be fun, guys and gals. It's not supposed to be, wow, if I win this bet, I'll be able to get ahead in the mortgage by 6 months. That's stupidity. So just do it to have fun. Use pizza money, and just know that you really just don't bet over your head, okay? So as I say, bet with your heads and never over it, and may all the wins be yours. We'll see you live on the X during the games with any comments that I might have.